Hello and welcome to our program Where God Weeps. Today we are going to consider the country where heaven touched earth, Jerusalem, the Holy Land, the place of Christ's birth. Despite that this is the cradle of Christianity, young Christians are leaving, and in droves, driven away by the discrimination and oppression that they suffer daily. To give us a deeper insight into the suffering of these young Christian families, we have the pleasure and the privilege to welcome to our studio today Father Peter Madros, Director of the Biblical Center for Pastoral Studies at the Latin Patriarchate in Jerusalem. Father Peter, thank you for being with us and thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome.
Father, you are an Arab Christian. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, I belong to the Arab-Palestinian Christians. The Palestinian Christians have existed 7 centuries before Islam came to the Holy Land back in 638. So we used to speak Aramaic or Christian Aramaic, then we have been Arabized by the Muslim conquerors, the Muslim Arab conquerors. So now we are less than 2% of the overall population of the Holy Land as local Arab Palestinian Christians. Palestinian meaning the Arabs of the Holy Land, this land of milk and honey, but which at times is simply of war and rage instead of milk and honey. And we are the last descendants, so to say, of the apostles, and the last change which link you as Christians of all the world to Christ and to the apostles. So I was born, we are not converts from Islam. Our families were Christians since the origins. We are Christians, we are the Christians of the origins, if you can see what I mean.
Yes.
Because in Islam you are condemned to death if you convert to another religion, so to say. This is why our ancestors were not, mainly speaking, were not coming from an Islamic background. It's the other way around, namely, most Arab Muslims, most Palestinian Muslims come from a Christian or from a Jewish background.
You come from a larger family. How many are you in your family?
Well, I am the last of five children, so all of us are big, of course. We were 2 brothers and 3 sisters. We have lost my eldest brother and my eldest sister. So now 3 of us are left, and only of the 5, only 2 are living in Palestine, in Jerusalem.
What was the story of your vocation? How did you come to understand your vocation, discern your vocation?
Well, I grew up in a Christian family, actually in a Catholic one, although my grandfather, Kivork Mardi Rosyan, used to be an Armenian Orthodox, but then he converted to the Catholic Church, especially when he married my grandmother, so you can understand the theological reason
Yes.
beyond that conversion. Anyway, so I grew up in a solidly Christian family. I went to the Brothers of the Christian school at Jerusalem, the old city, where I was an altar boy. And then when my late brother married a Jordanian young lady whose brother was a priest, he is actually the present Bishop of Jordan, I saw that was the best life for me, namely to serve God, because I had noticed, although I was young then, around 11 years old, that he was the happiest person I had ever met. Although I did realize that his was a very tough life also, a very hard life. So, and then that was only the beginning of that vocation. And then I went through, of course, the secondary phase studies, and then the philosophy and theology studies until I was ordained a priest in Jerusalem.
You've lived the majority of your life in Jerusalem. Can you tell us a little bit about the situation, the context of Christians presently in Jerusalem and in the Holy Land?
Well, although we are politically divided as Palestinians, between citizens of the Jewish state, so Israeli citizens there in Galilee in the north of the Holy Land, and now, let's say, Palestinian autonomy citizens, yet we have more or less the same problems, because we have this great privilege and this great grace of being Christians, but as the Patriarch of Jerusalem puts it, to live in the Holy Land as a Christian is not, let's say, something which comes by chance. It's not a coincidence, it's a mission. So this mission implies, of course, a nearly normal life, because in the Middle East you never have all your rights. Under a Jewish government, we are looked at as potential terrorists, so there are lots of measures of security.
Why would Christians be considered potential terrorists?
Because we are Arabs, because we are complete Arabs, and we consider ourselves completely Palestinians. We are no foreigners, we are no outsiders. So the Jewish state is very cautious with us and with the Arabs, which it has in it already. And the fellow Palestinians who are Muslims, actually 96% of our fellow Palestinians are Muslims. Well, they look to us also in a suspicious way, because to their minds, our faith is not the right one. So both, actually, according to Judaism and to Islam, we are three theists. I mean, we worship three divinities. According to them, we have divinized a man. We have made of a man a God. Although our faith says exactly the opposite. It's not a man who became God, it's God who became a man, according to John 1:14. So this is then, had it only been a question of faith, at the end of the day, everyone is happy with his own faith, and everyone is happy with God. God is a very nice man, so to say, and that would be hardly any problem. But the problem comes because in Judaism, as in Islam, you have theocracy. And theocracy means, since I belong to the true religion, then this land is mine. This is the promised land to me. This is the Jewish theory, which is also shared by many Christian or so-called Bible-believing Christians. And then the same theory you have, but in Arabic, by the Islamic side, which says this Palestine is an Islamic heritage, Earth Islami. So here, as a first result, we are considered as outsiders. And we are invited, the chief rabbi of the Israeli army said this to me once on the Israeli TV channel 2. He said, you, the Christians, you have to leave for Rome. You have to go to Italy, and the Muslims have to go to Saudi Arabia and to Mecca. This is Eretz Israel. So we live in the middle of this sense of non-belonging. Although when you look at history, you see that Christ lived in this country. And we are not mistaken when we say that the Holy Land is the land of Christ, is the land of the Virgin Mary, is the land of the apostles, of the gospel, of the New Testament. Of course, we don't deny that it's also the country of the Old Testament. So the source of our hardships is actually, I would say, theocratic.
Now you're caught, let's say, between two stools. And these stools are being pulled ever farther apart. How is this happening? How is extremism how is this influencing the life and creating further hardship for the Christians in the Holy Land?
These pressures are put on us also, I would say, number one, at the level of at the level of the ideology. We are not allowed to spread our faith. There is an Israeli law which forbids us to evangelize Jews. On the other hand, under Arab regime, so to say, there is no written law forbidding us to evangelize Muslims. There is no civil law, but there is the theocratic law that a Muslim who converts to another religion is condemned to death, which means that in the land of Christ, we are not supposed to preach Christ and to preach the gospel. To my mind, this is the biggest injustice. I do know that if you had another priest sitting here in my place, he would talk, first of all, about land confiscations. He would talk about discrimination, about us not obtaining many jobs in the administration, although we deserve them because we happen also to have a certain culture. But I would point to this point.
The fact that you cannot proclaim the gospel.
Yes. I make a joke of it, saying that you read a gospel passage 20 or 30 times. Well, I realized after the 30th time, being so smart myself, that Jesus said, go and preach the gospel. He said go because it was impossible to preach it there, you see, to preach it in Jerusalem or in Judea or Samaria or Galilee.
Now, are Christians keeping silent, not proclaiming the gospel, or is there a sense of, no, we are called and we will preach?
Well, unfortunately, I am a Catholic priest, validly ordained, very Catholic, so far, until this evening at least. So, but I say, I can bluntly say this, that the church is too cautious. The church is not taking any decision of evangelizing directly anyone. The church simply, I'm talking about the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the church is only answering questions when asked. The church is only defending our faith, not always, when she has to. But the church is not taking the initiative to announce the gospel to non-Christians because the church is afraid of reprisals.
What are concrete examples of these reprisals?
It would be burning our churches, burning our schools, burning our houses, killing our missionaries.
And there's history of this.
There is history of this, yeah. Well, when one remembers that in one of the cities, which I would not mention now, copies of the New Testament were brought and burned publicly. One of the laws says if you evangelize, for instance, in a Jewish milieu, well, you have to pay a fine and you can get imprisoned for that. So who is active in a direct evangelization, but without the minimum of cautiousness, are what I would call the free denominations, because those free denominations have actually nothing to lose, and they always do without the minimum measures of which I think. So we should find the middle way between being so coward as not to preach at all to non-Christians, or being too blunt and too indiscreet and even intruding into people's lives without them asking for Christ or for the gospel.
You've spoken about oppression. How would this oppression be lived out day to day for the average Christian like myself? How would this affect me on a day-to-day basis?
Well, if you go to school, if you go to a public school, the 1948 territories, you do not learn anything about the New Testament. It's forbidden to teach anything about the New Testament since a couple of decades there. If you go to an Arab Palestinian school, although not declared as Islamic or Islamistic school, then you learn nothing about Christ, about your faith. You just meet a couple of of pictures of the Holy Sepulchre or the Church of the Nativity in the so-called civic education, which means that our children who go to the public schools did not have any chance whatsoever to receive any Christian education until 2 years ago, when now we have, thank God, the syllabus for Christian, I would say, catechesis in the public school. Another thing is you are easily victim of aggression because especially in the situation of anarchy, when the government is not too strong, as we have in the self-rule territories, well, easily some intruders might get and confiscate your land, or they might insult your daughter or your wife, because they know that as a matter of fact and as a matter of principle, we are nonviolent people, and we are weak, and we are a small number of people.
Do you find, I don't know, I only know in some Middle Eastern countries
Right.
that there is, for example, if a case comes before trial, is a Christian voice as strong as that of a Muslim or a Jewish voice? Do you have the same weight before the courts in cases of aggression or persecution in this way?
Well, the law, as a written one, claims or fosters equality between voices of people from different religions. But in fact, if you come to our self-rule, then you may find lots of injustice. If you are a Christian and if you don't have enough money to bribe, a judge or a magistrate, and if you don't have a strong clan, a strong tribe behind you, then you may easily get into trouble, although you are the one who has the right. And we have seen too many incidents like this.
Young people are leaving in droves, threatening the very existence of Christianity in the cradle of Christianity. What can you tell us about this, and what is the church trying to do to keep or recuperate these young families?
Well, all this emigration comes from the psychological, social pressure, which has, to my mind, a religious background before talking about any political or any social. I would say that the social results are consequences of that religious theocratic position I have already described. The fact that Christians are leaving is a shame. It's a shame for the governments of the whole region. It means that none of those governments has realized what late President Arafat used to say. Now I am just quoting him. I am not admiring anyone exceedingly. I am a priest of God, not a man of politics. He said that the Christians are an important constituent of our nation. And when he was asked why, he would say, because they were there, they were here before us as Muslim Palestinians. So the fact that Christians are leaving is unfortunately coming as a normal, I would say, diabolic result.
Diabolic?
Diabolic, yes, because if Christians are leaving the land of Christ, there is something wrong. If Christians do not feel at home in the land of Christ, if Christians are meant to leave or made to leave, or if the coincidences never meant by anyone lead to this conclusion, so, as Jesus said, it's from their fruits that you shall know them. So this emigration is due to us being discriminated as Arabs, as Palestinians and as Christians. Now, the church is trying its best, but of course the church has limited resources. For instance, because we have to, what is the best way to have people stay? Well, here too, another clergyman sitting here would say, we have to provide jobs, we have to provide housing. No, this is number two. Number three. Number one is we have again and again to give awareness to our Christian families that remaining in the Holy Land is a grace, not just as a mission. And that if we leave the Holy Land, we are doing a great deal of harm to ourselves, to our families, and to the holy places, because the holy places cannot be rightly venerated by non-Christians.
Globally speaking, in the Middle East, there is a decline of the Christian population. How do you see the future of Arab Christians in the Middle East?
Well, Arab Christians have to react. St. Paul says, in love and in truth. It's in Ephesians 4:15, to the best of my knowledge, which means that at times we say we are all brothers, we have to all love each other. It's great, but that's not enough. Other times we used to say we have the true religion, Christ is the only Savior. That's great, but we cannot say this to the non-Christians. So we have to have a better catechesis in our schools. Priests have to be more serious about really serving the people of God and never serving themselves, and not just trying to be politically correct. People have to be, I'm talking about our people there, to be less selfish, to give more, because we have a couple of rich people, so we are not always supposed to receive help always from abroad, especially from this West, which we are always complaining about, and to which we owe 3/4 of our civilization. So, but then we need to be helped. And we need to be helped by the international Christian community. The churches are invited to visit us personally, not just to visit the holy places, which is great, but also to visit the Christian communities. Not just to be guests in 5 or 6 hotel stars, but why not going and lodging at Christian families, even at poor Christian families, seeing how we live and under which hardships we undergo every day and every hour.
In an earlier conversation, you spoke and you mentioned that you felt that the Holy Land was devouring itself. What do you mean by this devouring of itself?
Well, it's an old biblical expression that the land of Canaan, which is Palestine, the Holy Land, or to the mind of our brothers, the Jews, the land of Israel, is a land which devours its inhabitants. Actually, all the earth devours us because we end up by being eaten by the earth. But more than any other, this country devours its inhabitants in the sense that the governments, the world policy or politics have been giving importance to the land and not to the peoples. People are getting killed because of this land. Now, in the Christian context, many so-called Christians, sorry to say so-called, come to visit the land, the holy places. Even let's say the head of the Franciscans, the top figure of the Franciscans in the Holy Land, is the custos of the holy places. Well, he should actually be the custos, the guardian of the local church in the holy places, or the people of the holy places. So, in order to avoid this in the future, because we don't have very many Christians left, and this chain which links you to the apostles is getting less and less strong and less constituent, our desire, that the wish of our bishops, may I talk in their name now, is that every single tourist or pilgrim group meet personally Christians from the Holy Land.
What is your hope for the Holy Land, and from where does this hope come?
Well, this hope comes from that Sunday when a man called Jesus was crucified. He disappeared for 2.5 days, and on that Sunday he rose from the dead, and the tomb was empty. We have a previous experience of resurrection, so our hope is in the risen Christ. Our hope is in Jesus, who once said, "Trust me, I have won over the world." Yes, I have had victory over the world. But it's not a question of being victorious or being defeated. It's our hope is also in the Christian solidarity, in the international Christian solidarity. If I were to address Christians all over the world, I would say, you owe the best you have, you owe it to our land. Well, St. Paul used to put it saying that, "Oh, you dear Christians of Macedonia or Corinth or wherever, you have received the spiritual goods from the holy ones of Jerusalem." So our ancestors, the apostles, Christ himself, have offered the greatest light. And Christ gave the salvation from our world. We, as I would say, a gesture of gratitude towards Jesus, then a bit of consideration to his country, to the Mother Church, to the church he himself founded in the year 30 in that upper room.
Thank you, Father Peter, for having been with us today and for sharing your experiences and your knowledge. And we continue to pray and work for the presence of Christians in the land where Jesus walked. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program. If you'd like to know more information about the work of Father Peter, the Catholic Church in the Holy Land, we encourage you to consider the contact information at the end of this program. And I look forward to seeing you next time on Where God Weeps.